Uh, this Ace from Delta 2 Alpha, Fugitive Fitness. This is the Monks and Mavericks podcast. Today we're sitting here with Dan from the Iron Tree Dojo, and we're going to be talking about Hojo Undo.
That's right.
What is that, Dan? How do we get here? What's going on?
It's called complementary exercises.
Okay.
And so basically you've got like your technical, tactical application and your conditioning. And the Okinawans in their karate, they made conditioning exercises that were very, very specific to the karate that they do. So it's unique to them, and uh, it's just there to make your karate better.
So karate doesn't work without it? How?
It works better with it.
Okay. So why is it, or what's improved by doing Hojo Undo?
It's body conditioning. So I've been hearing a lot online lately. They call it impact inoculation.
It sounds very fancy.
Yeah,
Very scientific.
getting used to being hit.
Sure.
Yeah. So you're getting hit. You're hitting things. Uh, you're building your muscles, bone density. You're building good posture. Um, you know what was really funny to me?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when we had to wear all those masks and stuff?
Yep.
A couple of years ago. So the premier in Ontario decided that he wanted to let people work out at the gyms and everything, but you had to be double distance apart because you were allowed to not wear the mask because breathing would be impeded.
Mm-hmm.
So how many people actually like train their breathing muscles?
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny. You know, let's go to the gym so we can like get our conditioning back. But you know, those breathing muscles don't need those.
So within yoga, they talk about the link between the mind and the body being the breath.
Yeah.
Right. In catch wrestling, right? Like old Farmer Burns said, breathing will make a weak man strong and a strong man well, or something like this. Right. No, a sick man well and a well man strong.
Right.
So how important is the breath and syncing the breath with movement for karate? Is it a pillar of the foundation? Is that what the exercises are about? Or is it just like, you should breathe or you die?
It's a very important component. Uh, you've got to learn how to strengthen your breathing muscles, um, timing the breath with your movements. It teaches you when to breathe. For example, like if you're blocking or striking or moving, uh, you want to be able to maintain control of your breath. So uh, it's regimented so you learn when to breathe and how to breathe. Uh, it's also there's a little known component about cooling the body, and there's a big difference between ventilating your lungs and the respiration between your blood and the air. So uh, the breathing that we do, it forces you to really ventilate and to lower your heart rate. So
is there different types of breathing within karate, or are you always using a pressurized exhale? Are you using are you ever breathing out where it's like a sigh, or it's like, this is how we breathe, this way is the only way that we do it within your specific flavor? Because what we typically will see will be the right when somebody's doing Muay Thai or boxing or something like that, right?
Yeah, we don't make that sound. A lot of schools, the easy answer is if I know when you're breathing, I know when to hit you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're exhaling and I hit you at the same time, then like that's how you get winded. So we don't make that sound, so we're not like telegraphing our body,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe that one reason why a lot of coaches will ask people to do that is so I can hear you breathe, and then I know when you're breathing. So it's teaching you how to breathe, like exhaling on strikes, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But um, I would say you've got the hard breath, the soft breath, and then you have sort of like your natural breath, I suppose.
Sure.
Um,
So could you show us an example? What's this?
this is excuse me, this is an issue cheat sheet that was made for us. So this is a wooden stick with probably marble or something from a countertop place. It's got our logo on it,
Sure.
and this is our motto.
The motto says.
This says Iron Tree
Mhm.
blooms.
Okay.
So it's like you train for a lifetime before you bloom as a martial artist.
Okay.
So it's a Chinese idiom about perseverance and longevity and things like that.
So could you mentioned those three types of breath? Can you show, as an example, how you would use that hard style breath uh, when you're using the chi shi, sorry?
Yeah,
Or would that be a soft style breath?
all the exercises with the Jishi are the hard breath.
Okay. Could we see what that looks like, and then you can kind of walk through what it is we're engaging, so we kind of understand that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we're here.
Could I get you to do that once more, just facing that way, so the camera can kind of see how far back that's traveling? Just so that,
facing that way?
yeah, facing that way.
This way.
Because there's a lot of details going on, and I'll just get you to come.
Yes, there are.
Yeah, there's tons. Dan
So-
Dan had me go through a bunch of this earlier, and it's a lot more involved than you would think. So when we're doing that, right? So you said the chi shi is very much about like using that focus of breath to set. Would that be a fair word? Right, like
yes.
you use the analogy of planting that flag where you just.
Yeah, so
Right.
that movement, we're planting the flag. So many times the exhale is on the exertion.
Okay.
So if you were doing a movement where you lifted something really heavy, for example, you would exhale. One thing that the breath training the breath is, are you aware of the Valsalva maneuver?
Yes, but let's explain that for people at home that are not. It's for how you go through and basically create a weightlifting belt when you're lifting heavy weights.
So Valsalva was the gentleman that did a bunch of research on this,
Mhm.
and what people will do is when they lift something heavy, they'll bear down. So I'm squeezing my abdominal cavity, but I'm doing a glottal stop so the air can't get out, is creating pressure. And so the pressure helps my spine and my structure support more weight.
Yes.
The problem with this is it puts compression on my heart.
Squeezes everything.
So it raises my blood pressure, puts compression on my heart. And then the sensors in my carotid artery that tells my brain what the blood pressure is go, blood pressure spiking. So then my brain will dump all these chemicals that dilate and reduce the blood pressure. But then as soon as I release the pressure in my abdomen and I start breathing again, well, that chemical is already in there. So then my blood pressure plummets. If you've ever seen a video of someone weightlifting, doing a deadlift or a clean and jerk or whatever, and then seconds later they pass out, it's because the weight was too high and they're holding their breath. So what you just saw, part of the lesson is how do you keep everything contracted so I can lift that heavy weight and still breathe?
So is that consistent Firstly, you do Goju-Ryu?
Yes.
Okay. So is that type of Hojo Undo and the pressurizing of the breath using the Valsalva maneuver, is that consistent across other styles of karate, or is that specific to yours?
I would say it's a
Like does
ok-
Hojo Undo exist
it's
outside of Gojo?
it's an Okinawan thing.
Okay.
Uh, is Hojo Undo unique to karate? Yes and no. Practically every martial art has a like for people who golf, you can buy little weights that go on your golf club. And then now that it's heavier, then you build the muscles for your swing. So if you want to get better at swinging a golf club, you swing a heavier one. So that would be a functional exercise specific to golf.
Okay.
You wouldn't call it Hojo Undo, but that concept, that principle is like everybody does it. Track runners wear heavy shoes. Uh, there's weights for baseball bats. There's um, like in kendo, you can get weights for your shinai.
Okay.
There's those. um, so the principle is not unique. It's about being a functional exercise. Uh, what makes Hojo Undo specific to karate is that it's more karate. Like the postures, the movements. Uh, like this, for example, you could use it like a mace, right? You could use it like I just don't want to hit the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not a karate move. So I wouldn't call that Hojo Undo.
Okay.
That would just be a mace exercise.
So within the other styles of karate, whether it's Kyokushinkai or Wadokai or whatever, do they also have an emphasis on Hojo Undo? Is there a strong emphasis on that, or is the emphasis on mainly a Gojo-Ryu thing, or is Hojo Undo something that you specifically was passed on to you from your teacher, and you're keeping that tradition going?
I think if you go back in time far enough, you'll find that it was everybody did it in some form. Uh, we used the gripping jars earlier.
Yep.
Very strong probability that the Okinawans got the jars from China. There's drawings, there's pictures of kung fu people using the jars for training their grip. So very very old. Uh, but on the other hand, um, in more modern times, people don't want to get hurt. Uh, Teachers have sort of gotten away from it. Uh, you've got this balance because if you go old school, really hard training, Cobra Kai type stuff, then you're not going to appeal to the masses and you're going to have difficulty running your business. Where, not to say to soften it, but if you're uh, a little bit more balanced in how you teach or how you do everything, then uh, things might work out a bit better. So I think over the years, over time, like uh, people don't necessarily want to train the way that used to train. Uh, for example, I'm in the old days in Okinawa, like you would run 10K and then you would do Sanshin 10 times and then you would start training. And Sanshin would be your first thing for 3 years. And so you would just do Hojo Undo and do Sanshin.
The body's completely prepped now.
Yeah, we in our Western society, we don't really have the patience for that.
Yeah.
Like that's like the old way. So
Going through and getting into the old school conditioning in the last little while, spent probably the last 3 years on it. Um, I wish I had done it 20 years ago, because the difference in my hands and stuff like that is, I mean, it's just different, right? And like how it translates into grappling and stuff like that. And I mean, I think that there's a need to even more now that we are doing less labor types of jobs, right? Because the difference between like I've shook hands with men, and it's like you can tell that they haven't done hard work in their day. Versus like I remember when I was first coming into the workforce with like these 60-year-old men, and it's just like there's like shaking mitts with like shaking a handful of sausages, and it's just like, what did they feed you? And so now it's like, especially where somebody wants to be, like if you're taking this as a self-defense thing, like you plan on hitting someone with that closed fist, you need to have that, right? Like even just the stuff you had me doing today, it's like, okay, well, a lot of this is just about like strengthening the rotator cuff and making sure that like the back is contracting in the right spot, so you have the structure, so when you connect, your shoulder doesn't pop out of the socket, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we live in a very strange society. People will spend how much time and money on like Good Life Fitness, and then they go home and like use a leaf blower. Like if we would just spend a bit more time washing the floors by hand, uh, raking your lawn by hand, all that stuff, like that's what some of those older guys, that's what they did because leaf blowers didn't exist. So uh, people in general, over the last 100 years, like our daily life is less active because we're not washing clothes by hand, washing the floors because we've got Swiffers. Uh, the list goes on.
So how long does it take to run through like a set of Hojo? Sorry, what would the time commitment for someone doing Hojo Undo a day be to be effective? Like there's what, six different items. If you're to spend 15 minutes a day on each item, or sorry, 15 minutes a day, pick one item, do that for 15, 20 minutes, 6 days a week, take Sundays off for Jesus. Like would that translate into a result that's worth having? Or is this like a 15-hour a day commitment?
Have you ever done the 30-day plank challenge?
No, I think planks are a waste of time.
Well, it's up to like it starts at 30 seconds or whatever,
Sure.
and you work up, and then it's like 2 minutes or whatever by the end of it.
Yeah.
So like it's the same as anything. Like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We didn't get into a bunch of the other ones. So you've got 6 or 8 tools easily.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because there's the bamboo bundle right there. That's another tool.
Yeah.
You can use it for tapping, but you can also like and gripping and all that stuff. So, like if you're gonna try to train with all of them in one go, like it would take all day. But as you said, like if every class you just spend 5 minutes with one of the tools or 5 minutes with makiwara or something, like yeah, over time. Bone remodeling takes like 17 weeks, I think. It's like 3 cycles per year. So like it's you just gotta be consistent and like slowly increase. Start small and just
the iron palm stuff that I did under Dale Dugas, and said rule of thumb's about 100 days. Right. And so that was the basic, right? Where you're kind of coming through and doing whatever, right? And then for more specific fists, right? Whether you're looking at like your hand spear or your leopard or panther, dragon fist or whatever, this one, right?
Who calls Dragon Fist Panther? Oh,
I mean, they're whatever, right? Like that took me a year to be able to hit a heavy bag with.
Yeah,
but
I recall someone saying in my past that to learn a good punch it takes 7 years, and it's not necessarily like punches are easy, but it's just the wrist is kind of weak. So just to develop the strength and get the position just right, and like it takes time.
So if somebody wanted to dip their toes in the water of Hojo Undo, so we have the Chishi, which I've seen the buckets of like the margarine dish with cement and a stick in it. Right. So we have that. We have the double-ended one, which looks like a barbell.
Yeah, they call it the tan.
Okay.
And then we've got the kettlebells are the ishisashi.
Okay, which is that's like the Chinese stone locks.
Yeah, the stone locks.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got the jars.
Yeah. So nigirigami.
Okay.
Nigiri is.
I'm just gonna grab these and show them.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So we have the. You said this is the tan.
Yeah.
Which just looks like a barbell. Right. Yeah. And those are typically about how heavy? Like what was a standard weight?
That one's 25 pounds.
Okay.
That one's 35 pounds.
Sure.
And with the exercises we do, like you don't really need much heavier than that.
Okay. We have these clay jars. These are awesome.
Yeah. Local potter made those, and yeah, they're beautiful. It's called nigirigame. Nigiri is gripping.
Okay.
Gripping. Game is jar.
And then you said these are these Y bells.
Yeah, these are super cool.
And then you use those as kind of a more easily obtainable facsimile of the Chinese stone locks.
Yeah.
I've seen.
Yeah, so you would hold them like when you're training. You would hold them.
Yeah.
Like this.
I've seen Fighting Fit, I think is his handle. His name is Vinny. He's out of Maine.
Right.
And he's big into locks. He does like a old school Kun Tao.
So yeah, so you can use these as well. These are kettlebells, and you can use them the same. Like you don't actually need a concrete ishisashi. It's nice to have because I'm like the way that my brain works. I like to have the right tool.
Mm-hmm.
If I use one piece of equipment for more than one exercise, like it's just not the same.
Sure.
What else do we have? I've got medicine balls, the bamboo bundle.
Sure.
There's makiwara, 2 makiwaras on the wall there. So I've got the yoga mat against the wall, so I can just
tee it up.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to dip their toes in the water of the Hojo Undo, what tool would you start with? What's the one that's most easily obtainable? Right, the Chishishi.
So we start people with like 2-person drills.
Okay.
And so they're Hojo Undo in the sense that they're complementary exercises. In that fantastic book that we were talking about, he says that like once you learn how to do a high block, for example, you should block something. Once you learn how to punch in the air, you should punch something. Because punching in the air after you've already learned how to punch in the air, it's sort of like you're not getting to level 2 or level 3. So once you learn how to punch, you should be punching something difficult to punch, and then you're building muscle and bone density and all that stuff while practicing your punch. So we start with some really basic stuff that's like 2-person drills, using the basics and stuff, and then we move into the medicine ball and a couple of other, and like they progressively get more difficult. As far as which one should be first,
if somebody wanted to, hey, I want to start playing with this, I want to kind of get into it.
Yeah.
What's something that's like, hey, I could do this in my apartment. It's accessible. Like from the ones you showed me today, as far as like what has carryover across the broad spectrum,
the Chishi is definitely a popular one. Okay. You don't need a lot of room. There's 6 main exercises that we do, and it takes 15 minutes. So, and you
do that every other day, 2 days on, 1 day off.
Sure.
15 minutes though.
I used it to rehab my shoulder after my reconstruction surgery, so it works. Yeah, we've got light ones, heavy ones. Like those exercises are good. It doesn't take a lot of room. You don't need a lot of overhead room.
Okay.
And these are relatively. You could use a sledgehammer. bowling pins.
Okay. Is there what's kind of the length range you need to be about? What is that? 24 inches?
One of the exercises involves flipping it. So I just want to make sure that it's long enough that I don't hit myself.
Okay.
So this one's a little too long because I've got to choke up on it so I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the exercises you got to be careful. So yeah, this one or
And so you have that where you're coming up and down, right? And then you have that one where kind of coming all the way over,
yeah,
and then back up, and then kind of back
yeah.
and
So
over.
with that one, you can have a longer handle, definitely.
Yeah.
To do all the exercises with the one tool, like because there's the one where you actually flip it,
Mhm.
then you just need to be careful. If they're too long, then it gets awkward.
And I mean, it doesn't take up lots of space, so that's a good way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Do you, so going through and having recently uh, been involved in a pretty deep dive into kind of seeing what the Chinese are doing, and karate is Okinawan, but via China, right? Like, doesn't the original name translate to Chinese fist?
Yeah. So it was a play on words.
Okay.
Uh, the original character for Kara was China. So they called it Chinese hand because it came from Southern Kung Fu. Uh, but when they started interacting with Japan more, it's like, yeah, we're going to go to Japan and teach Chinese hand. Like, that wouldn't go over very well.
Yeah.
So uh, they changed the character. The character is also pronounced Kara, and the character means empty.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, they always said, "Oh, it's empty hand because you're, no weapons." Well, like that's a whole other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But the real answer is that it was a different character, but it sounded the same. So then it's like if you're in the know, it's like we're doing empty hand. And I seriously can't think of a really good example in English of uh, like a double entendre word that like if you're in the know type thing. But that was basically what it was. The empty could have been cleverly picked because you're supposed to train until it's second nature. So then your mind is empty.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're supposed to train until like your mind is clear. So sometimes if you're angry or whatever, like it's meditation. So uh so it could have had more than one purpose, but why would they pick that character versus any other character? Well, probably because it was pronounced the same.
So within the, like, you have a background in Chinese kung fu as well.
Yeah. Ours comes from Hungar, but it's been in Canada for a while, so like it's
So you've been exposed to some of the traditional Chinese ways of conditioning as well, like, right? And having been well versed in the Hojo Undo, how is it different? How's the approach different?
technical, tactical, application, conditioning. So the interesting thing is in the kung fu that we do, the conditioning is a part of training.
Mm-hmm.
Kung fu means hard work. The two characters mean hard work. So uh, if you're not sweating, if you're not burning calories, then you're not doing kung fu. And so uh, the Okinawans trained differently. So they had to use other tools to get their conditioning. But in the kung fu, like their conditioning is built in. And so part of it is they would use these. So these are brass rings.
My hand doesn't really get through these real easy.
Okay, try these ones. These ones are steel.
Like I can probably get it in there. Getting it off is going to be a trick.
So these are about a pound each, and you would you would load it up, and so then like I've got a student that trains with like 8 on each arm, 9 on each arm,
Mhm.
and then so then as you're training,
Mhm.
right now your arms are harder to move.
Mhm.
So they believed that the brass would actually like on a molecular level they thought the brass would make your skin hard, so that's why they use brass versus any other material. um, I like the brass because it jingles better.
It's heavier too,
Yeah.
about 10%.
So versus I like the sound.
Okay.
um,
You had these made?
these ones I got, no, these ones are mass produced.
Okay.
These ones I had made.
You got
these
the
ones,
hammer marks on them.
these ones are about 6 pounds each. So they probably won't fit you, but
They are not going to fit me.
but they're about 6 pounds. And so just imagine having this and then hitting the bag with chop choy.
So
And
when you're going through and doing this, like is it the weight of it, or is it that this is bouncing around as I'm going through and doing stuff and I'm getting
I would say it's
kind of
the
a hardening
I
of
would
the
say it's
bones?
the weight.
Okay.
Like the main thing is the weight. So now your arm is harder to move.
Okay.
So for you to do the same, do your patterns, do your bag work, all that stuff with like this is basically a ankle weights,
Mhm.
right? Well, this is basically like the same idea, but instead of it being cloth and wrapped around, it's a hunk of metal.
Absolutely.
So now you're punching with this, so it takes more effort to
To let it go.
yeah. And these ones, you got to be careful, man. I bruised the hell out of myself.
I can hear that hitting your thumb.
Yeah, I had bruises like so.
So when one of the big questions I have is, like, I've been fortunate enough to be taken on and mentored and from like the Chinese perspective and going through and looking at, like, okay, well, how is it that old school boxers were conditioning their hands versus, because I know, and like, how are they conditioning hands and how are they recovering from it? So I found everything in old school, like in the delve into old school boxing, from
Like
going through
Western
guys
boxing.
like pre-Marquis de Queensberry bare knuckle boxing, where
Right.
guys would go through and make a used everything from poultices made from whiskey and gunpowder. I'm not joking. That's not the most disgusting one. Rubbing sheep piss, horse piss, or yak piss on their hands and their face, and even some people would argue about like whether which type of urine was better and how long that should be baked out in the sun for to really kind of concentrate it. Corned beef brine. You can even find, call them, Tyson Fury talks about, in the traveling community there was a guy that would, like, they would soak their hands in diesel fuel, right? To harden their hands, and he was going to do that for his fight, I think, against Deontay Wilder. And so we're contrast against, Chinese and using like dit da jiao, right? Or dit da jiao, that I get mine from Dale Dugas. He's a guy that kind of mentored me a lot on the iron palm and stuff like that. And I literally buy it by the gallon. So within the karate and the Hojo Undo, when they're going through and hardening their hands, what type of recovery methods are they using?
I don't think they had any.
So it was
Like,
more the like horse piss then,
well,
or not even.
it's possible that they, devil's advocate, it's possible that they did.
Okay.
Well, the thing is, what's in some of that stuff? And so they, as I understand it, the Okinawans have the highest per capita of centurions.
Mm-hmm.
They've got incredibly healthy food, clean air. Like they're very healthy people. So when they say like you are what you eat, if you eat high quality food with no preservatives and things like that, then your body has what it needs to repair. And I think there's a lot of context that might be missing because Okinawa is very hot, it's very humid, and from what I can tell, they don't train at a high intensity. Like there's no HIIT in karate, like in Okinawan karate. It's too hot. Like they're a very casual culture. So
So they're more like Filipinos than they are Japanese.
they're like farmers. Well, they were farmers, but what I mean is they're like farmers where you're just going all day, every day. And as opposed to high intensity rest, high intensity rest. Like it's just too hot and it's not good for your body. Where um so they might have like poultice and herbal remedies and stuff, but as far as like what's been passed down and things like that, my understanding is they don't really have that. Like it's not a component.
Okay.
Where in the Chinese, like that was definitely a component. Uh, so the Ditajiao is a tincture made out of specific uh, plant material and sometimes not so plant material. And
There is everything from horns and antlers to tiger penis to snake venom, right?
yeah,
Like there's probably 2,000 or more formulas in just Ditta Jiao.
yeah,
And what's interesting talking to Dale, because Dale was classically trained and formally trained, is just like, yeah, you could use that, but you don't need to use that anymore. And they use that up here because that's what they had, but this kind of can also be used from down south for the same type of thing.
mm,
And he said like there's a lot of animal parts that just aren't needed.
yeah. So the Chinese, they use those, and but they also had more time and they had more wealth. Like the monks had more wealth uh, than your average Okinawan, so they may not have had access to. Uh, like I don't know quite how they made it all those years ago because they didn't have distillation, so they didn't have like Everclear.
So having had a chance to become very close to Dale, a lot of what like they would talk about, oh well, you would use this rice wine,
Mm-hmm.
and that rice wine would then be used as your base, and then this thing would sit. They would bury it for a decade or however long to really kind of leach it out. But there's more modern ways to do it now, and like you can steep things, right? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
tricks for sure, right? But a lot of those tricks are very kind of closely guarded, right? But just how much agitation something has will affect it, right?
The
Time, temperature, and turbulence makes a
the
difference.
Jiao
Yeah.
in deep that Jiao, the word Jiao is wine,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always kind of wondered like did burying it in a unglazed jar versus a glazed jar, did that change anything? Like, did it make the
Sure.
water evaporate and leave the alcohol? Like I'm kind of a sciencey guy, so these are things I think about. Uh,
There's there's formulas that don't use alcohol. Like
yeah, vinegar,
there's
I think.
vinegar based formulas.
Yeah.
I've heard of there's a very closely guarded formula my sifu uh, told to me, and it uses no alcohol. Um, and I've come across stuff that uses like Coca Cola, right? Like there's lots of ways to do it. You basically are just doing a leaching or an extraction.
Yeah.
There's a variety of ways to get that. Alcohol is one of them, right? Steeping something, using temperature, using vinegar, right? Like there's a variety of things that can be
Yeah.
used, right?
Some
So
and isopropyl.
yeah, lots, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's
Doesn't
those
have
ways.
to be like ethanol.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as it's been shown to you, they within karate there isn't a lot of use of the different medicines and poultices the same way that you would see it within the kung fu.
Yeah, that's correct. One thing that Choji Miyagi gave to karate in his area was uh, he formalized uh, a warm up. And the warm up was designed to like bring blood and energy to all the different muscles. So it started with the feet and it worked all the way up, and it was your breath and your stances and all these different things. And uh, in that area, in that time, no one was doing that kind of thing. So we know that stretches are helpful. Exercising in terms of strengthening muscles are helpful. So not just walking up to a tree, punching a tree for a bit and walking away. Like that wouldn't necessarily be how, like, there was a process to training where you prepare the body and then work it and then do cool down exercises or stretches or but as far as like the uh as far as the jowl or something similar to the jowl, I don't believe that there's like a karate jowl formula.
Okay.
If that
Yeah. So would they talk about using contrasting therapy as far as like hot and cold, right?
It's possible.
Warm, like, oh, you would warm you, right? If your hands were stiff, you would use warm seawater, right? Because the warm water would help create circulation.
It's very, very possible. So
and the brines would help draw out the inflammation.
The area of Okinawa that Choji Miyagi lived in, it's Naha City, and Naha City is a port town. So they were at the ocean, so they had lots of access to salt water, and they likely would have uh, a heavy Chinese influence on their health system, their healthcare, and in traditional Chinese medicine, like you take some medicines during the day and others at night, and you do, like, it's very, very involved. And so I would assume that there was cultural things about taking care of your body that they would use.
What's your point? I mean, they talk about like how many centurions, how many people living over 100 are from this region, right? So there's going to be some type of a way that that's done.
Yeah, they must be doing something right in order to take care of their bodies and things like that. One thing the author in that book mentions,
just gonna reach and grab that.
Yeah, it's right there.
For anyone that wants to dive deep into Hojo Undo, the book is called The Art of Hojo Undo, and it's by Michael Clark. What's cool about it is it gives you a breakdown of the exercises. It also tells you how you can make a lot of this stuff.
What's really cool is you see these two pictures?
Yep.
That's him.
It's perfect.
So he's in this book a whole lot. So here he is with Chishi and with Ishisashi.
Yep.
Diagram of Ishisashi. And here's another gentleman with a makiwara with its rope.
Yeah.
As opposed to anything else. But one thing the author says in here is he says they would train with a variety of things. So over there we've got the bamboo bundle.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing you use the bundle for is building calluses on your fingertips. You can use it for gripping, but you can also I have a video of one of my students just plowing his hand straight through it. It's pretty sweet. But they also had the bucket
for the rice.
Yeah, we didn't pull those out yet, but I've got one with sand and one with beans. And you would use a variety of tools. You wouldn't just hit makiwara to get the calluses on your hands. You would use a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of that. So everything in moderation, and you're not overdoing it. So I thought it was really interesting that in the book he's got a quote from one of the teachers, and they're saying, "Oh, everyone thinks that you have to do this to toughen your hands, but you don't, because you can bit of this, bit of this, bit of this." So I've got a couple of iron palm bags right there too, so you can iron palm and then use the. So like you're going like hard, soft, where like sand beans, like you're not.
really good friend of mine. His name is Will McClay. He's in Australia now, but he's a black belt in Shorin Ryu. And one of the things that he talked about was being 4/5 full. So he would do everything 4/5. Said when I eat, it's 4/5. Right? I'm only ever 4/5 full. Said if I do something, I always leave that 1/5 more I could have done. And applying that to, I don't know if that's an Okinawan philosophy. He said that is quite prevalent within his karate, where they talked about like you don't need to go 100%.
No.
The last 20% doesn't take you the rest of the way. It's probably just going to take you to injury, right? Eating until you're 100% full is going to leave you fat and unhealthy. And so, do they talk about that 4/5 within the Gojo Ryu as well, as far as how it is you're approaching training? Because I had never considered that Okinawa being a hot climate and kind of not being as strict and maybe just a little more chill being a really important part of the philosophy.
I think there's a lot of cultural things that we may not be, like they may not spill over.
Okay.
4/5. That's really interesting because a fifth is 20%, right? What's the ideal heart rate when you're doing cardio? 70% of your max. So I think that number or that range, 70-80%, like I think that comes up in many, many things. The rule for us was always don't get bruised. Like, sure, I could go harder, but if I get bruised, then I have to wait to heal and things like that. So if I train in moderation and I tease the line of getting bruised, then I can keep training every day. I actually saw a video and it was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy and he was talking about the same thing. I don't remember the intensity level, it doesn't really matter, but he said that if he trains casually, I'll use that loosely, casually, but he says if I train casually, I can train every day, where if I train at a high intensity, I might need a day off. Well, so if I train 4 hours a day casually, then after 7 days I've had 28 hours on the mats. But if I train at a higher intensity and maybe for 5 hours or 6 hours in the day, but I have to take a day off. So now I'm training every 2 days. And you actually get less mat time.
So the Russians, right, talking to one of my grappling coaches, he got to train with the Russians back in the day, and he said they just kind of trained every day. Hour and a half, 2 hours. You might have a cup of coffee, and you're just kind of, but you were constantly casually drilling, and along the way, you're gonna have some like fights to the death, but it won't be every day.
Yeah,
and it might be not even every match that day, right? And just that they just kind of always trained.
Yeah, like farmers.
Yeah, exactly.
You just get up and then you start baling hay, and then you do this, and you just go, but it's at a lower intensity, a more moderate, and then you don't wear yourself out too quick. So I would suspect that it was something like that. All the videos that I've seen from uh, from Miyazato Eiichi's club uh, in Okinawa, like people are always training, they're always doing something, but it's never like high intensity. They're not trying to. They just do 10 push-ups. They're not trying to do it as fast as they possibly can. Like it, they're just training, as opposed to I have to burn 4,000 calories in 22 minutes. They just go. So
you would say that within karate, generally speaking, or just more in traditional karate, that like do a little bit every day, just train every day, and train in a manner which you can just train every day versus going balls out one day and then being laid up for a few. That's kind of the secret sauce.
Yeah, I would say with the summers here, we're starting to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say you're better off to do that than you are. Um, it's in the research. Um, so I'd have to the dig up the journal entry, but they talked about how uh, like if I'm gonna lift weights, if I lift weights for 6 hours one day, then I get less muscle growth than if I did 1 hour for 6 days. It's still 6 hours. There's been multiple studies on that kind of thing. They found the one study I read found that in an older group of people, whether it was one day or every day or every other day, it was roughly the same. But for people our age, like let's say 30 minutes every day gets you more muscle growth than doing an hour every 2 days or an hour and a half every 3 days. So, so definitely little bits every day in moderation, maybe one might say.
People have asked how it is I've able to learn as many skills as I have, and how is it that I'm able to kind of do this and do that, and like, like how did I get so I could swing a 60-pound mace but still be able to toss a kettlebell that's 106 pounds overhead and like still have time for this. And the way that I do it is I have exercise breaks through the day as I'm doing things. I don't do 3-hour sessions. Oh, hey, I got 10 minutes here. I'll go through and I'll work my chop choy, right? Work my square horse shuffle. Okay, I got 10 minutes here. I'll take this, I'll take this mace and or this club and I'll swing that around a little bit. And it's for me, I train somewhere between 50 and 90%, but typically around 70% every day.
Mm.
And not for particularly long durations because like I might be working a 14-hour day.
Mm.
Okay, cool. I got up and I got my 20 minutes in here, and then I came home and I screwed around this for 10 minutes. But I found by keeping those sessions shorter, I made each session more a higher quality.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's like, okay, I know I only get 10 minutes, so I'm going to go through and make sure that I'm getting the details that make that thing work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the weights that we're using for this aren't particularly heavy, but just get the volume, activate the muscles you're supposed to.
That's right.
Right. And it sounds like that's very similar to, well, it's the approach to the Russian steak. It sounds like it's the approach to the Okinawan steak. Right. And so maybe balls to the wall 1 or 2 days a week isn't the recipe for success.
I'm not educated enough to really say that like high intensity interval training, for example, is uh, better, worse, ideal, not ideal. Like I'm not a sports therapist or anything, so I wouldn't want to speak out of turn that way. Um, but as far as what I have read and uh, what I've grown up with and things like definitely moderation, little bits every day. Uh, don't overdo yourself. Um, and like just enjoy it. My teacher always says, just enjoy it. If you're working too hard, it's not fun.
Having a little bit of a background in strength and conditioning programming and the studies that have been done. So your three energy systems, your anaerobic alactic, your phosphate system, your anaerobic lactic, and your aerobic system. Well, the majority of HIIT training exists in your lactic zone. And after about 8 weeks, your performance actually drops. So going through and crushing yourself into oblivion for more than 8 weeks as a training camp,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be detrimental. But the majority of like the long-term stuff is on steady state, right? Like keeping your heart rate at that 120, right? For longer periods of time and just building up the stroke volume.
Yeah,
And
it's interesting that you just brought that up.
and then your very short duration, like 8 seconds and less.
Yeah. It's interesting that you brought that up because the forms or the patterns or whatever in the karate are relatively short in comparison. The ones that we do in some of the ones that we do in our kung fu take 4 minutes, such as the one with the guandao on the wall behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Now that one's a good, I can't remember the weight, 10 pounds maybe, but it takes 4 minutes. And so that's long enough to go from aerobic to anaerobic. And so you don't need to do cardio and run around the building 10 times to get your cardio up when,
Mm-hmm.
if you're training properly, like it's built in. To sort of bring us back to what you're asking about what the differences are and things like that. So
we also talk about how like the Okinawans were peasant people, right? So they're kind of doing their low intensity steady state all day long in the field.
That's right.
And so them going through and having a short, 7-step form, 12-step form, right? Keeping it all in their phosphate system, making it crisp and clean.
Yeah, like it makes sense.
Absolutely. If you go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self? Can be related to training or not.
Don't think too hard. The high heat in my head makes my hair fall out.
Okay. What advice would you go back and give yourself about training?
Uh,
In the martial arts.
That's a really good question. I've been training a long time. I took a little bit of time off, but not really. It's a bit of a story. I think one of the worst things that happens is if you've got like your routine and your level of activity, if something changes in your life, like going to university or something like that, and then you stop, like doing that comeback afterwards, like that's really, really tough. Finding ways like what you do, find ways to stay active the whole time during school or whatever that happens to be.
My
Like
secret is I'm very, very lazy. Like I am too lazy to have to restart again.
there's a lot of people who, like, I was never able to train at my house, like train on my own in the backyard or something. I hate being watched. I wouldn't want to be in my backyard practicing and then there's just these eyes from my neighbor's house, like, what's that crazy kid doing? Like, I don't want to deal with that. So
Sure.
there's a lot of people where their class time here, this is their time, and they don't have time at home, or it just doesn't work for them. So finding ways to do in between classes.
Okay.
I guess it depends on your level of commitment. Many times twice per week, like 2 classes a week or whatever, like that's your recreational casual level of commitment to an activity. And if that's all you want out of your martial arts, then that's fine. But if you want more, if you want to use your martial arts to get like real changes in your body strength, all that stuff, then you might need to train at home to make up the difference. Uh or in my case, like with what I offer here, do a second program.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're getting more floor time. So um I think it also it really depends on uh like what you want to get out of your martial arts or your weight training or whatever it happens to be.
Okay. What besides the art of Hojo Undo, right here, and that was by Michael Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Clark spelled with an E. What other books on martial arts would you recommend?
Oh, there's so many.
2 books maybe.
There's so
your
many.
favorites.
There's so many. Um, the Book of Five Rings is a classic one. The thing I would say about that is be careful of which translation you use, because there's some translations that the passages are biased this way and others are biased that way.
Okay.
So
which one do you recommend?
That's a good question. I actually haven't read enough of the different ones to say this one's better than that one.
Okay.
Um, just there's been a couple of versions that I've read, and there's a passage in one of them that read completely different to the passage in the other one. So sometimes the editor or the translator is interpreting, and if we're not Japanese scholars and we're not like linguistics, then or linguists, there we go. Then how are we supposed to interpret these the way that they were intended to be read? Uh, but that definitely, the Book of Five Rings is a classic. Um, Another good one is, gosh, martial art book.
Doesn't need to be.
A really good one, if you're into being a stoic, stoicism, is Marcus Aurelius, the meditations book. Are you familiar?
A guy named Quintus Curtius, who I've interviewed, did probably my favorite translation of it.
I wonder if that's the one that I picked up.
There's a few.
Oh yeah, and that's part of
like Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. On Duty is another one.
So, there's one translation that was published like 50, 100 years ago, and the book is huge. And the first half of the book is a biography. So, of course, now you're biased. And then when you see what he wrote down, it's like you're viewing it from the way that the person who wrote the biography wants you to see it. Whereas uh, the version that I picked up, like page one was like, from my father, I learned this. And it's difficult to read, but I like it that way because then I get to think for myself instead of being led one way or another way. And I found a really great copy of the Sun Tzu Art of War, where the two authors or the two editors, like that's the entire point of what they did was to make a translation that was as close to the Chinese as possible with like as neutral as possible. So some of the passages don't make any sense, but it's just like because the syntax is different that you're just like, what am I looking at here? But I like it that way. So, um, so that was a very good one, Sun Tzu.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? On Instagram?
On Instagram, Iron Tree Dojo. I'm in Barrie, Ontario, 1 hour north of Toronto. Yeah, I pretty much spend all day here. So
okay. And we will see if we can talk you into doing some Hojo Undo seminars and stuff like that.
I would love to. That'd be a lot of fun. Not enough people do it. So
I have. So having had a chance getting ready for this, going online and seeing a whole bunch of people doing it differently than you showed me, and there was a whole bunch of details missing. I think that it needs to be kept alive. So let's see if we can talk into doing it.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
And I mean, you have a big collection of stuff here. So
yeah. I find the best way to do it in a situation like that is we spend a bit of time like learning how to do the exercise, and then we set up a circuit and just like spend an hour just rotating.
Exactly.
Like that works out really well for like a seminar.
Excellent.
Yeah. In my karate class, we do Hojo Undo every class. So
that's your warm up?
No, we have a warm up, and then we do Sanshin, and then we do Hojo Undo every class.
Sounds incredible. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Well, thanks for being here.